Dr. Kendall Deas is all about diversity here at the College of Charleston. And when it comes to Garrett Academy, he's concerned about its future. In this special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I sit down with Dr. Deas one-on-one. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Up app in your Apple or Google Play stores. Oh, Dr. Deas.
How are you, Quintin?
Oh, I'm doing just great here.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. You know, you have a very extensive background. I looked at your resume. It says this: Dr. Kendall Deas is Director of Diversity, Education, Training, and Grant Initiatives at the College of Charleston. Obviously, you're an adjunct assistant professor of education here for policy and law. You are also a faculty fellow at the Honors College here. You studied education law and policy at the University of Georgia. Love the Grady School of Journalism. You also studied public policy at Georgia Tech. Studied political science at Washington University in St. Louis. Studied globalization studies at Dartmouth College. Studied international relations at Georgetown. And of course you live here, but you're from Sumter.
Right.
And now you're an advocate for Garrett.
I am.
When you think of Garrett Academy, where are you emotionally?
I see Garrett as a school that had a rich history, a school, from my understanding, discussing the history of the school with people in the community that was thriving and that was a source of pride for people in the community. And I want to see Garrett return to that. So as co-chair of the Quality Education Project, working with this group in terms of education advocacy, we're pushing and striving to improve public education here in Charleston. We want to make Garrett academically viable. So Garrett is primarily a school that focuses on trades. So we want to keep trades there, but connect them to the strengths of the local economy here in Charleston. But we also want to provide quality education from the standpoint of a strong curriculum that will allow young people to go to college if they so desire. And so we want to broaden the curriculum and make it attractive to individuals across race and class lines here in Charleston.
And how viable is Garrett right now in your mind?
I don't think Garrett is as viable as it could be. The Center for Advanced Studies now has been voted upon, and there's a decision to build it at North Charleston High School. So many of us are concerned, those who are proponents of Garrett, are feeling that that could hurt Garrett in terms of student enrollment, having another school that emphasizes trade. So the goal from the standpoint of what QEP is hoping to achieve is to make it viable by offering a broader range of courses, courses that are college prep to allow individuals, students to have the opportunity to go to college if they so desire, and to focus on building trades that are connected to the local economy.
You talk about proponents, and I know you guys do a lot of polling here at the College of Charleston. Where's the public poll on the future of Garrett?
Well, I think if you think about the future of Garrett and where the public may be, it's kind of difficult to gauge. I know in terms of fighting this issue, individuals were all over the place. There were a number of schools that were put on the table concerning where the CAS would be built. I know people in the Garrett community want their school to remain open. As far as I'm concerned, that's what matters most. What the individuals in that community that Garrett currently serves, what they want. And they want their school open. They want their school invested in. So many schools that are predominantly minority have been abandoned oftentimes by leadership in the districts. Lincoln High School is a good example. These schools have pockets of excellence. Lincoln High School certainly did. It was brought to my attention the scholarships that students wanted at that particular school. And so now you have students bused to schools in other parts of the city, Mount Pleasant, for example, Wando, where they're not doing as well academically. And so I want district leadership to honor their word. They have put forth a vote to move the CAS to North Charleston, but they have an amendment to keep Garrett open. But that really is questionable given their actions in the past. So what I'm hoping to do through the work of QEP is to hold the board accountable, to get them to invest in Garrett academically, to make it viable, building a broader curriculum, but also too, which I think is very important, investing in bringing in quality teachers, because human capital is important when you think about resources. Many of us think about resources from the standpoint of them being financial, but you need quality teachers, and that's human capital. And so we need quality teachers to teach in schools where you have challenges, such as Garrett.
As we sit here right now, a lot of people might be thinking, where are those quality teachers in your mind?
Right. Well, we have a shortage of quality teachers in the profession. We've got to go out and recruit young people to be interested in teaching as a profession. So what that's going to entail is going into schools and targeting young people who are in advanced placement classes or in the college prep programs and getting them interested in teaching again as a profession. We've got to do some work. So when you look at College of Charleston, we have a teacher education program.
Right.
Enrollment is down there. Winthrop has a comparable program, teacher education program. They're experiencing drops. We have to make teaching attractive. We have to get the best and brightest interested in going into it. And so that's going to require recruitment. It's going to require developing courses that are of interest to students, broadening curriculum. It's going to require us engaging in, really aggressive recruitment efforts, and also changing the dynamic in this country concerning how people think about teaching as a profession in general. I've spent time in other countries, Finland, for example, in that particular country. Teaching is such a noble profession. People think very highly of teaching. Your best and brightest in the Finnish system go into teaching as a profession. And so they go to graduate school, they have master's degrees, the government pays for them to get advanced training to teach. We've got to focus in on changing the culture here in this country where we value teaching as a profession and attracting our best and brightest to go into that field.
What is the state of quality education in your mind?
I think we have problems in our public school system, not only in Charleston, but nationally. We're not investing in our public educational systems the way we should. Going back to your previous question, we've got to invest in the best and brightest, getting them to go into teaching. We've got to bring talented young people and train them to teach in schools that are challenged. We've got to pay teachers accordingly, because when people have talent, you may want them to go into a particular profession, but they have to be paid. They have to pay back student loans, for example. And so we have to, as a nation, be willing to make the investment in the system and be willing to invest in public education to make it viable for all people who want to take advantage of it.
And you talk about schools being challenged. Let me go to Burke.
Mm-hmm.
When you think of Burke, where are you in your mind with that school?
Well, Burke has a rich history. It really does. Burke produced Harvey Gantt, who was the first to integrate Clemson and became the first African-American mayor of Charlotte. Very rich history. And so I think Garrett is a school that should build upon that rich history. Mm-hmm. So we have to invest in Burke. We have to build a quality curriculum. We have to bring in quality teachers who are qualified to teach students in that particular environment. We have to make the curriculum interesting and broad. We have to build an advanced placement program that will be a feeder into colleges and universities. And one of the things I always tell individuals when I talk about schools in this city and anywhere, South Carolina is a state that is blessed to have a wide variety of different types of higher education institutions. We have elite institutions that have highly selective admissions processes, but we also have schools that have open admissions. So I'm a strong believer in preparing young people to be ready to go to college across the board, and directing them in the direction of applying to colleges and universities if they're willing to do the work to get there. And so I think that's very important. And so Burke is a school that I think has the capacity, given its rich history, to be great, but we have to invest in it. And we have to encourage people in the area to send their children there. So many people who are in the Burke area want to send their kids elsewhere. We have to get individuals in the community to invest in the school.
And let me go back to the Charleston County School Board, because obviously Thomas Dixon, one of the proponents of this particular initiative for Garrett, that is, said this on October 23rd. He says this, quote, "This evening, Charleston County School Board member Sidney Bone Coates tried to sneak a proposal in about Garrett Academy that the committee advisory committee to people had never heard about, nor had they agreed upon. But she ran into stiff opposition from Jesse Williams, John Hill, Kendall Deas, and Christian French, with backup from Paul Garabini, Pastor Thomas Ravenel, and others." What does that say about the Charleston County School Board in your mind?
Well, it sends a signal to me that they had an agenda. And the agenda was to build that CAS at North Charleston High School, regardless of what people in the public thought. So they allowed a community committee to be formed. My understanding, when this vote took place on November 2nd, this is after the incident you're talking about, a decision had been made that it was going to go to North Charleston, that CAS would be built there. So it gives the impression that when they made a decision to allow a community committee to move forward and have discussions without having a final vote, they did this to appease the proponents of Garrett. And they really had no intention of really listening to the recommendation of the committee. So the day they had the final vote, the recommendation of the committee, which was to have the CAS built at Garrett, was never even placed on the agenda. So that sends a very negative signal to the community.
And if you were to sit down with the Charleston County School Board one-on-one, what would be your first question to them?
My first question to them would be, yes, you voted to build a CAS in North Charleston and you have an amendment to keep Garrett open. What does that mean, given your track record? Given that in the past you have promised to engage in certain actions, but then you never follow through on it. And so I really feel that the leadership in this district has oftentimes turned its back on schools that are minority in concentration, highly minority in concentration. Lincoln High School is an example. That school closed. Everyone is concerned that Garrett's going to close if the board does not hold true to its word to this amendment, because CAS will offer trades, and that will be tremendous competition for Garrett, and it could only lead to Garrett's student population dropping even further. So my response to them is, will you honor your word? Will you invest in Garrett and keep it open as you're suggesting? And so what I want to do, as someone who's trained in education policy and has knowledge of quality curriculum, I want to help individuals on the board come together with individuals like myself and others that I work with in QEP to come up with a viable plan for what Garrett could look like academically, to keep it open, to make it a school that's attractive to individuals across race and class lines.
Dr. Kendall Deas, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this.
Enjoyed talking to you.
Likewise.